Hello, everyone. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Athens in Motion Commission meeting. I am the 678 number on the screen, and we're going to do things a little bit differently tonight because I don't have a reliable connection. So Daniel, our vice coordinator, so I'm going to turn it over to him.
To translate.
No.
Lauren is having some connectivity issues, as you might have noticed, so I'm going to be leading the meeting in her stead. She's able to be here and participate, but it's just we want to make sure that everybody at home can hear us clearly. So
thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm going to share my screen. All right. This is our meeting for July 26th. To start off, we did not receive any public comments. And I wanted to welcome Dale Van Kampvoort. He is our new Greenway Commission appointee. And Dale, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm Dale Van Kampvoort. I'm a professor of mass communications at Piedmont University. My second time living in Athens. My wife Tara and I lived here from 98 to 01 as I served as a visiting instructor at the Grady College while I earned my PhD. Before that, my wife Tara and I owned and operated small market radio stations in Georgia and South Carolina from 1975 to 1998. We recently moved back to Athens in late 2019, just before the pandemic hit, and she's pretty much been locked up in the house almost for 2 years because of that. But I'm glad to be part of this, and I do recreationally bike. In fact, last week I did a section of the Firefly Trail out toward Winterville, so I look forward to serving on the committee.
Awesome. We're glad to have you here. I'm sure once Teresa's back, she'll be really excited to see that we've got somebody in communications. She's really excited about some of the work we're doing on that committee. So, and just as kind of like, I'll probably schedule a time to meet with you and give you more of an orientation. We're kind of throwing you into the deep end on this one, but we do want to make sure that the onboarding is a little smooth, and so maybe we can set up a time next week to introduce you to the various committees and just talk about what we can do.
That'd be great.
All right, so I guess first thing to do is approve this agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda? I might have one. Lauren, I'm not sure if you got my email about conferences, but
yes, I did, and I was trying to add that on there, but yeah, when do you want to talk about that? Major discussion or under your update?
Yeah, let's put it under major discussion. So,
I'm adding that.
Perfect. All right, so I cannot do any motions or voting, but I can request. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the agenda? All right, Randy?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Yeah.
Aaron?
Mark? Right. Perfect. So that was Aaron motion, Mark second? Or was that Randy?
I seconded it. This is Mark.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Can we get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, this is Lauren.
Opposed? Great. Next, the minutes from our special called session. Were there any amendments to that? Those were sent out a couple days ago. This was our special called session to discuss Barber Street.
Actually, that's a full meeting, right?
Whoops. Oh, we got 2 sets of meeting minutes, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know if we
So-
have the July special called meeting minutes, but we do have the June ones.
Got it. Okay, so what we have is the June meetings, meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve these?
This is Lauren. I
I'll
will
make the
a
motion to approve.
All right. We'll say, Randy, do you want to be the second?
I'll second.
All right. So we got
Thank you.
Lauren make the motion, Randy second. All in favor? All right.
Aye.
All right. So, and then you said we do not have the special called meeting minutes.
I do not have them.
Okay.
I don't know if Blaine can hear us. But Blaine, do you have
Yeah.
minutes from that meeting?
Was that for the Barber Street
Yes.
meeting?
Right.
The special call session? I do not have minutes for that.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Well, at least I did not send those out.
That's all right.
We will make
We'll,
a point to.
Yeah, we'll get some minutes. Luckily, it's all recorded, and we'll be able to go back and make sure we get that. So we will move that along to next month's agenda. All right. Lauren, do you want to try to give the chair update?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the Mayor and Commission, the Government Operations Committee, was voting on members for the Athens Motion Commission and other boards, authorities, and commissions. Randy, I know you had your interview today. I don't know when we'll hear something about those open or renewal seats.
It'll be minimally 2 weeks, but probably beginning of August.
Okay. Thank you, Randy.
All right. So
Well, that would be the
Yeah.
that'll be great. I think
Huh?
we have 3. We have 3 positions up for that, or was it 2?
3.
Okay.
Great.
I just want to add that this will be my last meeting for the time being, just due to the meetings having to go back in person. It's not due to lack of interest on my part, but my job now keeps me out of town a lot, and I won't be able to make all the in-person meetings. But I hope to rejoin in the future when my schedule is a little bit more open. So, because I do have loved serving on the commission and working with y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron, and we appreciate your service, and we understand how difficult it can be to make this time on a regular basis. So definitely appreciate you, and understand that you're working a full-time job.
And yeah, mainly just one that keeps me out of town a lot. But otherwise, I've always been able to make time for the commission. But like I said, I'll be back, I hope. So as long as y'all will
Right.
have me.
Yeah, I will have you.
Always. And
Yeah.
by all means, feel free to give us some public comment. And if you are in town, show up for a meeting. And if you'd like to stay on any of the committees, we accept people who are not commissioners in those committees. So I'd love to keep having your voice in the commission.
Great. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
That kind of flows into our next bullet point. And Lauren, I can cover this one if you're good with that.
Thank you.
So the state of emergency was extended until the, I guess, the next voting session, which is August, early August. So that's why we were able to do this meeting virtually. rather than just forwarding on everything I get from Public Information Office to you guys, I'm going to just keep that correspondence going to Lauren so she can kind of touch base, and we'll get a good realistic picture of like when in-person meetings will start again. For now, we, with the high numbers that we have and the extension of that state of emergency, we can keep doing virtual for the time being. So unfortunately, I think it's going to be one of those things where we just kind of find out right ahead of time whether it's going to happen or not. So I'm ready to pull the trigger on, setting up an in-person meeting when that needs to happen. I understand that some of you are virtual. There's a few kind of technicalities that I'm just going to have to get more information on as we get closer, but we'll get all of that figured out.
Point of information, where is the in-person meeting held?
So in the past, see, I've never actually hosted an in-person meeting with you guys. In the past, they were held at the planning office downtown. We are likely going to try to keep that location. We could do the big planning auditorium, but the audio situation is not great in there. If we are streaming the meeting, which we do still want to do. So some other options are a smaller meeting space that is outfitted. Our conference room in Public Works, which is in the basement of the downtown planning office. We have facility that we have technology there that'll do meeting recordings, and then there's also Pound Street. So there's a few options that we can choose from. I think for now we'd probably stick with the downtown office because it's more accessible to everyone. And so, and I assume that you've been updated. Do you guys keep up with all that over on the Greenway Commission, like with the going back to in-person and meeting recordings and stuff?
We've had the same discussions, and still haven't started them, but had the discussions.
Yeah. Awesome. Next thing up is the work plan. Lauren sent that along. Lauren, you want to talk about it?
Yes, if you can hear me, just know that I did finally send that off to the mayor, the manager, and Clerk Spratlin. So that has been sent. Again, we had teased the work plan in our annual report. We just had never voted on an official work plan until last month, and I appreciate Randy for figuring that out and bringing that to our attention. So thank you, Randy, and I did send it off. I have not heard back yet, but I sent it.
Excellent. All right. Any questions about the work plan? All right. We'll move on into major discussion. So conferences. I've been doing conference research today. And so there's two that I've been looking at, and one is the Association for Bike and Pedestrian and Bike Professionals, and their conference is coming up in Minnesota, and I've just joined as a member, so I actually get a discounted rate. The other option is there is an ACTO conference. That's North American, or no, it's the National Association of City Transportation Officials. And that conference is in Boston. Both of them are in the like $600 to $800 range. So not really something that is easy to send multiple people to. But I always find in my experience it's really helpful to have a conference buddy to, make sure you're able to get the different sessions and take notes and share ideas and network. I double checked, and it is it's within, if you guys want to choose to send someone to the conference, I think I'm leaning towards the it's APBP, so American Pedestrian and Bike Professionals. or association of. Anyways, sorry. I'm really bad at the letter things. I think I actually have it pulled up here. Maybe not. So I guess the question is, that conference is August, at the end of August, and then the other NACTO conference is the beginning of September. I think I'm leaning towards the one at the end of August. And I'm curious if you guys wanted to send a commissioner along and use some of y'all's funds. I think all in all, based on my kind of looking at rates and hotels and the way that we do reimbursements from the county's perspective, it kind of translates the same with you guys and the way that your funds work. So it would be about 1,400 total, and that includes all travel and lodging and food, plus the registration. And then that's up in Minnesota where it's like 70 degrees today, which sounds really nice. So I think that's the one I'm leaning towards. I'm open to being convinced otherwise, but I think with that membership and us being a member, it'll be cheaper. And then next year, if we become a NACTO city, which that costs $9,000, but you know, there's some benefits and trainings that come along with that as well. And then we would also get the discounted rate as well. So potentially it would be more, and then we could kind of alternate each year going to different big conference. And then there's also some local conferences too, where we could send more than just one person. But yeah, I just want to run that idea by y'all, see if y'all felt like it was a good investment. The 1,400 is about how much y'all had left over last year. So I'll open that up for discussion, but any ideas, thoughts?
So Daniel, this conference in August, it's Monday through Wednesday, is that right?
Yes. And I will.
And Daniel, are you thinking this is something that we would send a commissioner to this year or in future years?
The registration's open now, and y'all could do it this year if you wanted to. That's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, this is what I'm going to be going to. Next year will probably be a different conference, but the let's see, conference, Twin Cities, Minnesota, and I'll send this out to chat. But there's you know, we've got pedestrian fatalities, roadway design, and race. How Black and brown neighborhoods are disproportionately harmed by traffic risk and potential strategies for action. At that same time, these are all concurrent sessions. You've got Count It, new innovations and best practices for active transpiration count programs, and changing the rules to change the world. So like all three of those are really great topics that I would love to attend all of them, and they're all happening at the same time. And that's where it gets a little difficult to just be the only person at one of these conferences.
Right.
So, yeah, and I believe one of the speakers also, yeah, Charles Brown, he actually spoke a few years ago at the Georgia Trail Summit. And he talked about equity in the Athens in Motion plan. So just a little fun bit there. So I can send this along, but I do think if we're going to spend money from y'all's budget, then it should be voted on.
Yeah.
And registration, I'm not sure when the deadline is, but I would assume that you could register even in person. It's just going to cost more. So we would have to do a special call session if you don't want to vote on that today. So.
Right. Well, Daniel, thank you for doing all the research into this and for figuring out that this is something we can spend money on. And I do think it is a valuable use of our funds. I'm just not sure that I personally can commit to this less than a month out. Are there any other commissioners who are highly interested in going to this in late August?
I think something like this would be beneficial. I'm kind of in the same boat as you are, Lauren. I can't commit to end of August right now, but certainly I think for the future, that would be beneficial.
Maybe,
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Daniel.
No, it's fine.
I think that we should factor this in when we consider like what we're asking for as far as money goes. And Daniel, I appreciate you noticing that this was about as much money as we had to give back this year because we couldn't spend it fast enough. So maybe this is something we plan for. Of course, the downside of it is it's after commissioners go up for renewal, so it's kind of hard to know who will still be here.
Yeah.
Well, and we could also, you could vote to spend the money, but then if no one can actually do it, then we don't spend the money.
Okay, yeah.
So, and like I said, you could register in person even at the event. So, I understand not really being able to commit at this time. I honestly haven't even really looked at my schedule to see if it matches up with meetings, but I think Stephen will be understanding. So that is an option.
Yeah, I think too from a budgetary standpoint, I know one of the takeaways I had at my interview today was I was asking, what are the expectations of the interviewers from Athens in Motion, and pretty much the consensus was around communication. Looking for more how we're communicating out to the public as to what's being done in respect to transportation safety. So we'll have to look at those, the monies we have and focusing a lot on that, on our communication.
Thank you, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to say we table this for now, but Daniel, this is incredibly helpful to hear that this is an option, and I know you had sent me a chart comparing travel expenses, so I thank you for doing the research. I know how long it takes to figure out what expenses are, having signed up for some conferences via UGA myself, so thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I was kind of looking at it for myself as well, so it was easy enough to piggyback on. So. Great.
Daniel, this is Stephen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
One other conference to just keep in mind, which would be a Georgia-based conference that maybe more people could attend. I'm thinking they might reinstate the Georgia Walks Summit, or they may have combined that. I think we were looking to see if maybe they're combining that with the Bike Walk Summit. If either there's the case, they've usually been in October in the past, and that could just be a short drive for anyone. So I haven't done a lot of research on it yet, but maybe that's one that y'all would be interested in looking in to see if sending more people to this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't updated their website since 2020, so that's not a great time. But Daniel, I think there's a few people we could reach out to see if they have something in the works for this year.
Yeah, and I'll get in touch with those executive directors to see what's going on.
Great.
Oh.
Yes, please keep us posted. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah,
Sure.
see, even on their front page, it says the 2021 Georgia Bike Walk Summit. So that is, I think you might be right, and it was like merged together.
Yeah,
but,
check with, you might want to check with John Devine and see.
Yeah, good point. All right.
There's also Georgia Bikes, which has been online the past few years, but that's in the spring, right?
What is it?
Isn't there, is that there's the Georgia, there's a summit. I thought it was in the spring.
So there's now a Georgia bike/walk/live summit session, and I think they're looking to do that again in the fall. But again, we may have to check in with folks about that.
Okay, I might be misremembering. Thank you.
There might be one in the spring, but I'm not sure of it. Yeah, just something to keep in mind. We can discuss it more. Prince Avenue pilot project. Lauren, while your connection's coming through, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we talked about this last time. This is a little bit of a carryover. So I think I wanted to just get on the same page about what our role will be in ensuring that this pilot project is a success, or by getting out the information. And Daniel, I know you had said that Tool has a communication plan, and so I just want to make sure that we are doing everything we can.
Yeah, and that kind of also folds in nicely with Randy, what you were saying about communication. So, Stephen, have you heard anything on the pilot project and the communication goals? I assume that is being coordinated by Tool.
That's right. Yeah, I haven't heard an update other than that we wanted to push very hard to make sure that learning from past failures, right, or less than successes at Barnett Shoals, we can. I think getting the goal message across to people and really pushing the idea that this is specifically looking at pre and post data to see if it works, and teaching people how to actually use it, right? Like getting them to know, not just saying good luck and pushing them out there, but something that can show them how to actually navigate the new setup. So yeah, that's our goal, but I have not heard from Tool as far as what or seen a draft of that yet.
I talked to Jared, and he mentioned that the Athens Motion, the communication strategy that we hired Tool to develop for us is a really great project to use one of those elements from that strategy, where it kind of talks about how to engage and how to utilize, where does the commission get brought into things? Where does, what are staff's responsibilities? How do we engage with other nonprofits and, other user groups around town to really make sure that the word gets out? And so with them working on it, I trust that, once we have a couple meetings, we'll be able to let you guys know what, not necessarily what's expected, but here are opportunities for you guys to engage and help, bring this forward and get the info out. Are there any other thoughts on that?
Definite go? Is this project a definite go? Are they going to be doing it?
Yes. So this project is a pilot project, and basically from Pulaski to Millage on Prince Avenue, we're doing a 3-lane project, and that was approved by Mayor and Commission. It will be up for, the original scope was 90 days. There's the possibility of a CDO for a 60-day option. And Stephen, was this actually voted on, or was it just at the agenda setting and it's going to be?
So it's going to be voted on the August 3rd meeting on that Tuesday, or August 2nd, sorry. And actually, it's the current recommendation from the user group is for Pulaski to Barber for 90 days. And there is a commission-defined option being written right now that would ask for it to instead be from Pulaski to Millage for 60 days. There's a few commissioners working on that. So unsure which of those will be approved. Hopefully one of them at least will be approved and they don't come to like a standstill in their debate, because we are on limited time. We want to make sure that if we do a pilot project. It's during the school year, while kids are in school. So really hoping that they can get that pushed for the fall either way. But we will see on August 2nd.
This is Mark. I just wanted to add that the user group is very supportive of an extension of the full length of the project. And just to add a couple things, we are planning, and we want to coordinate this with staff and with Athens in Motion. Clint McCrory, Ellen Turner, and I are writing an article for the flagpole that we hope to get out about a week before the pilot starts, emphasizing that the goal of this overall project is to improve safety for all road users. That it's not about like safer for all road users, including drivers. And the other thing is we are meeting tomorrow. The Prince Avenue Corridor Committee is meeting, and I saw that Clint just proposed, not only are we supportive of that full extension, but also that the left turn lane be continuous throughout that corridor from Barber to Millage. The most recent design from Tool, I think it was from Tool, had a no turn lane near the president's house in order to allow for that bus parking space. So we wanted to suggest that that's really sabotaging the usefulness of the 3-laning if you don't have a center turn lane. It would cause backups. So we almost would rather see it just go to Barber if they're going to do it that way, because it just doesn't make much sense to us. So I'll stop. I'm driving, so I'm going to try not to talk too much.
Thank you for that insight, Mark. I appreciate that. Okay, so knowing that the user group is going to produce an article, we can certainly share that. Do we want to have any of our own materials, or do we want to plan on having potentially a letter to send to the mayor and commission when they vote after the trial period?
I would support that. So I think that's a very appropriate role for Athens in Motion Commission to have.
Okay.
Any other comments on that? Any other questions? I'm sorry, did y'all want to vote to write a letter, or?
We can come back to that because the pilot's going to be a while for now, but I just want to put it in our heads.
Got it. Okay. Excellent.
And I don't think we need to vote to reshare materials from the user group or posted by media outlets unless anyone else thinks we do. We've just been sharing items as they've come up on our social accounts.
Yeah, I guess I just meant like for a letter, an official letter from Athens in Motion. We were just talking about this today, Stephen and I, in terms of what are the responsibilities of you guys, and like, should y'all have to look at every single construction plan document that we create and give us a thumbs up? Probably not. Like, concept level stuff, definitely. With a lot of our stuff that goes to public input, sharing out those links and getting the word out, and even helping table would be awesome. I think there's also an opportunity for not only for you guys to participate in the public input by providing comments, but to also draft up an agreed upon message to the mayor and commission to help inform their decision making. There's a lot of different pieces that go into making a decision about these types of facilities, and so you could just hand over the public input and say, here are the results, but also you could give along the public input and the research and the letter from Athens in Motion and all those types of things. So the more types of even the letter support from the Greenway Commission, those types of things. So
Gotcha.
Awesome. Great. Next on the list is from the Education and Communications Committee. And I will also take this one because Teresa could not be with us today. She is unplugged and I think overseas, but she is just unavailable. So what is the appetite for tabling and having presence at the various events around Athens? Actually, Randy, you're on the communications committee, right?
Correct.
Do you wanna talk about this one?
Well, sure. So really what we're looking at here, we've talked from a communication aspect of doing more tabling events, but it is a significant time commitment for any of us. I mean, I don't know if everyone's looked at the agenda. There was several like um, different events that we could possibly attend with the AthFest, the Hot Corner, Marigold Festival, which is huge, again, very well attended. The Twilight, which is massive. The Green Life Expo. I mean, you can see the rest of the list there. So I think what would be the limiting factor for the tabling is our ability to commit bodies to attend these different functions. I was with Teresa at the Green Life Expo. Unfortunately, that wasn't really greatly attended, but it's still, we did get a lot of foot traffic. It was mostly the other people presenting at the expo, but had some good discussions around transportation. So I personally think the tabling is good because it's good for us to get out there and be communicating with the public.
It's too bad about Randy that this Green Life Expo was not well attended. 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, Teresa and Carol and I were there, and it was pretty well attended. But that's obviously before the pandemic, and things have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It can be great to attend these kind of events. I know Lauren was on behalf of the T-Splost at the Marigold Festival, and I got a Firefly T-shirt there because they had some swag, and that's another thing. If we do have people and do decide to do these, I've worked recruitment for years for students and attended a lot of conferences, and having some swag to get people to come to the table and advertise Athens in Motion can be great too, and just a good conversation starter. People are more inclined to come over and talk.
Yeah, and Randy was also at
Yeah,
Marigold
agreed.
Fest.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So at this point, we're, I mean, ultimately, we can maybe have another session and look at picking a few of these at the next communication meeting, and have some commitment and some bodies put to these events.
And I think also, what are some other ideas? Like we could do tabling only, at the farmers market, but you could also organize bike rides and like at Porch Fest, we could have a table, but also, just hand out water and, like we could have a group ride going around from show to show, and just kind of handing out materials that way. Like it doesn't always have to just be a traditional table. I 100% agree about the swag, and even like if getting some t-shirts is something I want to do, then running it needs to come through the general commission to approve the purchase of the shirts, and then we can take care of ordering it. If we want, depending on the logo that gets put out there. But are there, like, I think one of the things in here was even, joining in the holiday parade and, like reserving a float, which would just be us biking around in an empty spot. between cars, you know. So are there any other ideas about stuff? Because I think that's why Teresa wanted to bring this to the General Commission to see, for those who haven't been able to table, or, you know, whether it's just time or, you know, other commitments, is there something that you would rather table, that you plan on going to anyways, that you think it would be a good opportunity? Like, what would get you out volunteering at the table, basically?
I mean, I think this is a good list, plus like the, you know, farmers markets. I know that in the past, Bike Athens has done that. It was a great way to interact with the public and get more, you know, just more communication out there about what we're doing.
Yeah, and I was involved in the meeting, and yeah, these were kind of just the most highly visible things that we could think about, as far as exposure goes, and getting kind of the message out. But I'll tell you, I think one thing that does help, Daniel, with getting people involved is kind of, we need a lot of people, but if you reduce the amount of time you need to be there, on kind of call and on cue. So if we split up, say you staying there for 8 hours, if we split, 4 people up for 2 hours each, it kind of makes it go quicker, and you don't run out of gas, and you're kind of more enthusiastic about talking to people and discussing the different type of issues. So splitting it up a little bit to smaller kind of schedule, I think helps out, getting more people involved.
Yeah, for sure. And with tabling, we haven't really talked about it much because I haven't been to any. There hasn't been tabling going on, but that is something where I could come and help also run the table and talk about stuff too. So, and then that could fill in those empty blocks where maybe no one can man the table for 2 hours, and I can be there. So.
Yeah, here's I know we're trying to get a gauge here and see like what the appetite is for tabling from people besides Teresa and Randy who have tabled. So is there anyone who feels like they personally, that's not something that they could do, or is there anyone who feels like they're not interested in that before I continue here? Okay. Then I wonder if, trying to think of some action items for the Education and Communications Committee. Randy, what if we had y'all come back to us with three or four events, maybe up to, maybe we try and aim for 3 events that we could have a presence at over the next year. And then I think each event should have at least 3 commissioners. So that would be 3 events, 3 commissioners. Everyone does a minimum of 1 event, ideally. But then if, Randy and Teresa, have already done some tabling, if they want to do more, then that could be helpful. So what do you think of that approach, Randy and Daniel, of coming up with 3 potential events?
I think that's a good place to start. Yeah.
And basically, you could treat it as like spring, fall, and winter time, and then you avoid the heat of the summer.
Yeah, Athfest can get rather painful, actually. So hot.
Yeah.
And Todd mentioned to me that there is a movie in Dudley Park coming up in August, and then there's also a lantern parade being planned into Dudley, which that would have a biking element to it. So, Todd, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we're just in the planning stages on the lantern parade, and then the I think that one's gonna come maybe in the spring next year. But the movie is coming up in August, and as part of that, we're going to look at having bike corrals and doing some valet park, area to park bikes and that kind of stuff. So our art division administrator is the one that's coordinating it. And so when we get a little bit closer, we may reach out to y'all and probably just talk to you a little bit more about both events. And I'll make sure she does remember to, because reach out to y'all. And all, because I know the lantern parade, she does want to have a route where people are biking in with lanterns, and then she wants to have a route that's like people that with accessibility issues are coming in this route, and then another route where people are walking in. So she kind of wants to have all the different aspects of mobility and how you get into the park as part of this lantern parade. And so
That's really cool.
That's really exciting, Todd.
yeah. But
When is that?
the movie or the parade?
Probably the parade, I'm
The
assuming.
parade, I don't have my notes in front of me. I think it's either going to be our spring event or it's going to be our fall event next year.
Next year. Okay.
Next year, yeah. So because we're having a what do you call it, a hot air balloon event for this fall, and so it's something we don't have the hot air balloon every September, and so the lantern parade may replace the hot air balloon next September. But September 27th, we're having hot air balloon at Sandy Creek Park.
Oh.
I think that's a Saturday.
When are y'all going to start sending that out? Is that still being planned?
It's being planned. They sent the schedule out today to see who wants to sign up to work it. So, but yeah, it's underway currently. So if you're interested in the hot air balloon festival, just let me know and I'll we can set you up a table or whatever, a space within the event area where the vendors will be and that kind of stuff. Must be it must be the 17th of September.
Okay.
It's a Saturday.
We'll keep that in mind too. Yeah, we have a lot of great, I mean, even the holiday parade is leisure services. A lot of our great countywide events are leisure services. So that would be a really easy place to start.
Yep.
Any other comments on that? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I know, Randy, this is pending your reappointment to our commission, but could you either have the Education and Communications Committee decide on what events you think we should do over the next calendar year, and also keeping in mind these ones that Todd has talked about, and report back to us at the next meeting?
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Yeah. And now I think one of the reasons why we haven't had as much of a presence as we would like is just the pandemic, right? The kind of we were just starting as a commission when the pandemic hit, and so a lot of our plans have been foiled, and we just haven't ramped up outreach to the extent which we would like. So I'm excited to see this moving, even though we have an extended state of emergency declaration. But someday things will be normal. So the other item that Teresa had brought forth from Education and Communications is our social media. Actually, I think she specifically said the website. And the website is fixed, but we can certainly make sure that we have the information that she desired on there. And Daniel and I have been talking about plan revisions and an interactive portion of the plan, and I think that will be the best place to spend our efforts, is a tool that can be readily used by the public, by the commission as they're considering decisions, and by us. Daniel, do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me, I have like a draft version that it has data. We have not like fully double checked to make sure it's all accurate to the plan, but this is basically an example of one of the parts of it. Let's see. I think, of course, I had it open for like a week on my computer and then I just closed it out today. That always happens to me. Okay. Well, if I can find it. Okay. I'll just have to show y'all another time. So yeah, the idea is, the Athens in Motion plan, it being, a physical document, like I have one behind me, but it's covered in stuff, so I'm not going to hold it up. It's important to have that physical document and have that approved by the mayor and commission, and it goes into a physical record. But there are a lot of ways that you can make that plan more accessible, and a big part of that is having more of an interactive experience on the website or, on through story maps. If you remember our Barber Street public input, for instance, you're able to go through and actually look at a map and see what the section of trail looked like in front of your house if you wanted to. So those types of interactive maps make it a lot easier to really make our information more accessible. And so the idea here would be you could essentially have the Athens in Motion plan and talk about the different aspects of it, but you could have, it's called GIS Hubs, and it's basically a web page where you can go to this page and you can embed different web apps. You could have a link to the existing bike network, and then you could have a link to the proposed bike network, and then you could have the pedestrian resources or ADA accessibility or a map of all the ADA barriers on our sidewalk network. These are all different tools that would require a lot of development to create each of those, but in terms of the resources and the data that that provides and the communication to really help justify why the plan is so important, then you can put those all in this one spot that's easy to kind of navigate. There's also, you can put in story maps on here, and so you could have a walkthrough of like, here is how we prioritize our projects, and you can actually show the data that we're using for that prioritization. So where we used bus stop and bus network as one of the factors, you could show a map of the entire bus network with all the bus stops and show the service area of all the neighborhoods that fall within walking distance to those bus stops. And then that would allow you to see, and you could maybe toggle on the Athens in Motion projects, which those are predetermined. There's like the master plan of here's everything. If we, could snap our fingers, here's our ideal network for Athens as a whole. And then you take that and you could overlay it with all these different criteria and you show this project would be great, but it's not really near any current bus stops. It's not connected to any other infrastructure. It's, I got some feedback. And so you can actually kind of see how those projects overlay on those criteria, and the criteria determines how those are prioritized. And that's kind of the main that's part of the main function of the Athens in Motion plan, is to look at that prioritization and make a decision based on that. So those are just some ideas that we had for how we can make it more accessible. I think, there's obviously a lot of aspects to the plan. There's not only, tier 1, 2, and 3 are definitely important, but there's also a whole set of goals, short, medium, and long term, that also need to be implemented. Sidewalk gaps aren't really going to be taken care of by the Athens in Motion tier 1, 2, 3 system. Those are more for those arterial roads, not so much for neighborhood sidewalks. Meanwhile, we shouldn't wait 30 years before we fill in the sidewalk gaps in neighborhoods. So we really need to have multiple programs going on at the same time. That's outlined as a short-term or mid-term goal, I think, is to reinstate the sidewalk gap program. And, as we also explore our 5-year update and what we're going to be doing, and we can set new goals, at the same time, I'm also filling in a lot of information for the Bike Friendly Communities application, which that kind of pairs really well with, if we're looking at a 5-year update and we have to reapply for Bike Friendly Community every 4 years, then we can actually use their assessment of what we need to do to get a higher ranking for our 5-year goals. And that way, that can really help us guide the action items that we need to take on. So, yeah, that's just some of, maybe that was like a little too in the weeds on it, but there's some other aspects too. So that's more of the interactive plan part of it. In terms of like social, our currently the Athens in Motion Commission website is, that page is operated by the Clerk of Commission's office, or I guess just the Clerk of Commission. And that has to live there, and they have a very specific way that it is displayed and the information provided there that that kind of goes along with all of the other commissions and BACs in Athens. That being said, we could create an Athens in Motion Commission webpage under TPW that is more of like the flashy marketing side of things, if we're interested in that. My recommendation would be that it wouldn't necessarily duplicate any information that the other page has. It always gets a little dicey when you have a list of, here are all the commissioners, and then if someone forgets to update, or then you have conflicting information on the web page. So determining what would need to be on that site, I think, is a conversation for the communications committee. But there's really a lot that we can do with, basically right now y'all have the commission page, which is operated by the Clerk of Commissions, and then y'all also have the Athens in Motion plan page, which is where the plan is held. And so that could be expanded to be more of a interactive and frequently asked questions, and let's talk more about the plan, and here's where you can find other things, and it could turn into a resource for everything bike and ped related. And then from there, you could pretty easily build out more information for the commission as y'all start developing your long-term goals and what is the commission, what do we do, that kind of information.
Can y'all hear me?
Mission statements. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I noticed on Teresa's mock-up that there's some information that she thought would be helpful to have on there, like what are our current projects? So is there something that we can link to on the TPW set of pages? And I know that with T-Splosh there was an FAQ mechanism in the sidebar, so I'm also wondering if that's something that we can include. Again, just Teresa had sent along a mock-up with some information that she thought that the committee thought might be useful with our online materials.
Right. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I actually forgot about that mock-up. So this is what we currently have for TPW's bike and pedestrian improvement projects. This just has all of the projects as they're going on, and as we add
Yeah.
more, and it's just that it's really simple. There's ways that we could make it better. You could have images and that kind of stuff, but
No, this is great. Like, so maybe we can, if we can just put a link with our materials to this page. I mean, the one thing that I would say is like you could put some kind of image above that at the top of that page, but just being able to link to that page would be great.
yeah. So yeah, and I could I'll double check to see if I have edit privileges, and I can just do that link pretty easily. Some of them are really easy fixes, other ones are not. I currently don't have a website for bike ped stuff. There's just too many other things, and I don't want to risk creating the web presence and not being able to keep it up to date, because that's another really important part is, if, for instance, if y'all were to put information on your site about upcoming information for Barber Street, if I didn't go in and remove it later on, then it would end up being out of date. So, and you can usually plan for that kind of stuff. There's a lot of job description under my, so but for you guys, we could absolutely link to this, and that make a lot of sense. Lauren, did you have anything else on that? All right, the next thing is the safe routes to schools. We talked about this a bit last time, and Craig, you and I met. I know y'all are about to start back up, I'm pretty sure. Do you want to talk about that some?
Well, sadly, and this is sort of bit indicative of sort of the past year, but we had that meeting set up with Patty, and I can't remember what happened, but I wasn't able to attend it after we had finally set it up. So, but safe route to schools is something that, and I think I saw one of our other commissioners on as hopefully taking some initiative on as well. But it's something I'm certainly willing to try to revisit with schools. I think we're going to be able to get more involved with PTA and with the school this year. Last year was our first year at CMS, and then this year our daughter's an 8th grader there. So, but just in general, looking at our school systems and safe routes is something that I certainly would be willing to help promote. I think it's a crucial part of formation. I'm not sure what else could be shared in terms of tangible things, but.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we talked about this a bit, but it's one of those things where do you create the demand or the infrastructure first? Because in a lot of cases, to get the funding for the infrastructure, people will point to the fact that there's no demand, but then there's no demand because there's no infrastructure. And so by working with Patty and the Safe Routes program and getting some schools involved on some special days where it's like, hey, we're going to do a, bike to school day or something like that. There's a whole list of different events that the schools can do. Even just becoming a partner school can do a lot in just getting information out to the students, and then you can actually do a lot of really great work to improve the infrastructure along with that. So,
can you say more, Daniel, about what it means to be a partner school?
Yeah. So our email servers went down just a little bit ago, so I don't have that email to pull up. Do you happen to have the worksheet I sent over to you?
Did you send it to me or James? Because James, I saw his name on the.
Oh yeah, it might have been James. Okay, so.
But I'll look. It's on a worksheet that you sent me. Yeah, if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, what it means is, so there's different levels, and at the very base level, you basically get a contact person at the school to be the liaison for safe routes. And I think they have to commit to 1 or 2 events a year that are, and there's a whole list of events. And then that's just, to be considered. And honestly, that is one of the hardest parts because, teachers are really spread thin and, overworked in a lot of cases. And to basically say like, hey, we want you to be this point of contact for the school. And, that's a lot of extra work. And so if you don't have a full-time staff person at the school to really help coordinate that, it makes it kind of difficult. From there, once you have that contact person, it's really easy to jump from, I think, I don't remember what the levels are, but, bronze, silver, gold, like up through platinum. It really all comes down to the number of events you do and the data that you're sharing in terms of like, all right, we're going to do a bike count or a walk count. And so those are some events. And some of it can even be, education. So educational event where you get someone like Bike Athens to come in and present to some kids. That basically is what makes you a silver or gold tier school. The reason we don't have more in Athens-Clarke County is simply because we don't have a staff person as a liaison there. And yeah, sorry, Craig, I got you mixed up with James because I remember meeting about this and I was like, oh,
it's something that we talked about way back,
yeah.
but it seemed like maybe some information had gone out that I hadn't gotten. So I was wondering, but not to speak tangentially, but I was even as you were saying that, how does participation in the bus system part of this? Because that's obviously a safe way to get to school that doesn't involve individual vehicles. And the bus ridership, I think, was down significantly in the last 2 years, and I don't know that families have reformed that habit of taking the bus, or students have. They kind of enjoyed getting dropped off. So that could be another incentivizing factor. We've had a shortage of bus drivers too, but as things hopefully get addressed in that regard, it certainly could be potentially included with that, at least from our perspective.
Yeah, and I know when we did the road safety audit out on Tallahassee Road, we were out there for 4 or 5 hours, I believe, and through most of the day. And there was a few spots though where I missed some photos, and after I got all the information together, I went back out there to take photos, and I happened to show up when school was about to pick up students, and a good maybe half mile of the road was blocked with cars just queued in line.
Yeah.
And I pointed out to our traffic engineering division, and so they went and I believe they contacted the school because that's not something that's absolutely not safe. We like if there's a way that they can queue up to where they're not just out on the street. And I mean, one of the main parts of that too is cutting down on the number of people who are just going to pick up their students. But we also can't expect them to walk, bike, or, even bus in some cases if they don't have good access to those things.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So we are over time for this section. So I want to go ahead and move on to the last item. And that is just an FYI that Teresa sent along that Winterville is working on a complete streets and trails master plan. And I'm not going to pull that up on the screen because I don't know if that's been adopted yet, but it's just letting y'all know. And there was a question about how do our ACC complete streets policy, how does that interface with this? And my understanding from Daniel is that they get to do their own thing, but where ACC Transportation Public Works is involved in a project, then our complete streets would apply. Does that sound right, Daniel?
That's what my assumption was. Steven, is your audio connected? Sorry, there's a mosquito in here, so if I'm not crazy.
Well, yeah, if
Um,
while you're swatting away there, Daniel, if you look at the Complete Streets plan, it does say it focuses on the the 1 mile radius from the center of the city that is incorporated as Winterville, um, and focuses entirely on that. Um, Actually, this coming Tuesday at the mayor's workshop, the city council workshop, the Mark Beatty from the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission, who helped write the commission wrote most of the plan, will be speaking, and then the mayor and the council will be voting on it the following week to approve it. So if anyone's interested, 6 o'clock at the Winterville City Hall, you can hear the presentation.
Thank
yeah,
you,
no,
Randy.
that's really good to know. I might actually. I saw an early version of it, but yeah, I hadn't really heard about any of it, and that's kind of what makes me assume that our Complete Streets policy doesn't pertain to them.
I can speak a little bit to it. So,
Cool.
Winterville's interesting in that we, as Athens-Clarke County, we do some capital projects within their city limits, and so anything that we are in charge of within Winterville would still apply. The Complete Streets would apply, but then the town itself has some additional external funding sources that they use sometimes, like LMIG funds and others. And when they utilize those, they would not be held to those standards. No.
Thank you for that clarity, Stephen.
Sure.
Yeah, and to expand on that, Randy, to what you were kind of alluding to, our Complete Streets policy is mostly a guiding policy for our department. It's not necessarily technical standards for everyone. So if a development, for instance, was building a new road and they were building a section of that, then there's nothing in our policy that could, other than within the planning code, that would require certain things to be met. Now, they would be required to do sidewalk and a lot of things like that, but and we would recommend it. But
it's such an indirect thing. It's basically telling staff we will do everything in TPW specifically will do everything in our power to make sure that future projects are built out, no matter who builds them out. We will try and enforce as much as we can to make sure Complete Streets are followed. So for that example, like Daniel gave, it would be up to us to revise our technical standards, right? So that when those developments come in, they are required to follow some things that would make sure that they follow by those guidelines. But that's where we can put the enforcement piece on that kind of project.
Good.
All right. Yay, consolidated city county government with one or two cities outside. It's complicated, but we figure it out. Okay, so just looking at the agenda, so we'll move into staff updates next, and that will carry us through until 6. And as I mentioned in the email, this meeting I went ahead and extended it to 6:15. So Daniel, you'll try and get through as much as you can up until 6, and then we'll breeze through our committees and other groups from 6 to 6:15. But if anyone needs to hop off after 6, that's fine. We won't be taking a vote on anything after 6. So heads up. So we'll kick it over to Todd for the latest.
Okay, I will share my screen if you don't mind, and I've
Great.
a couple of pictures of some of the construction. That's not it. Can you see my screen?
yes,
With the Firefly Trail.
the PowerPoint, yeah.
Yeah. So so basically the bridge construction is moving ahead. They've got the verticals on the park side of the bridge structure just about all in place. Next week they'll be working on beginnings of putting the deck on the Firefly Trail Bridge in Dudley Park. And then August 8th, they will start erecting the verticals on the Poplar Street arch. And then the last week of August, they're looking at erecting the timber section, the middle piece. They'll begin the installation of that with the estimated completion date at the end of the year, December, maybe roll into January potentially. And then Firefly Phase 3, the plans have been submitted for review. That's the section that goes from Hancock Road all the way out to North Main in Winterville. They're still acquiring easements, but they are getting really close to getting a lot of that done. And so Derek has went ahead and submitted the plans for plans review and that kind of stuff. The cemetery project for the Greenway, they've got the concrete deck poured on the cemetery's bridge, and they're starting to backfill and do their stormwater pipes and drainage right there at that intersection. They're about to start. They've already started putting some of the fencing up. You can see in the picture. They're going to pour the approach slab, which will connect the bridge, the cemetery bridge, out to the existing paved driveway loop. And then for the walls that you can't see, I mean, you can see the tip of it right there. On the trail side, they're going to begin to install the granite veneer on this wall. Is what's coming up in the next couple of weeks on that, with the completed construction date of November of this year for the cemetery project. And then Carrs Creek Greenway, they have submitted the plans for that segment of the Greenway. It's has been reviewed. Comments have been sent back to the construction and the design firm, and they are beginning to work on those comments. So that one, I'm not 100% sure when the construction starts, but it's moving along pretty good. So construction should start. I won't say fall, but maybe late fall and that kind of stuff. I think Derek said they may hold it a little bit just to kind of see if the economy numbers get a little bit better start of the year, but I don't hold me to that. So it's coming along. So it's almost completed, and this is just a quick picture of one of the overlook areas that we were looking at. It's just gonna be, we don't have the budget for a super cool overlook like the one at Easley Mill, so this may just be a stopover point that you can see the river from. So, and that's it.
Todd, can I ask you a question about the next phase of the Greenway? There's a creek there, right? Is there going to be like a bridge or a crossing there at the creek on that future section of Greenway?
On Carrs Creek, yes,
Yes.
there will be a bridge that goes across and ties across the way.
Okay. So yeah, that part that continues will be on the other side. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So it comes down. Basically, what we're doing is, if you're familiar with the area coming from Carriage Lane, there is a sewer line easement. And so we're going to leave that as a natural surface trail for people that want to get down closer to the creek bank. Because one of the things I didn't want to do is disturb our sight line to the creek by having to put up a safety rail to keep you from falling in the creek. And so we made the choice to pull the bike route up on the highland and reserve this nice scenic lower trail for a foot trail that'll be a part of a loop that if you want to go out and just walk a nice loop you can, or whatever. It'll just be a little, or uh, it just provides you a secondary route in order to go this way to this piece that goes across the creek.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know.
And Todd, if I could, quick, the Winterville or the Firefly Trail Section 3. I had gotten I was talking to someone on the action committee, the Firefly Trail Action Committee in Winterville, and they were saying that they were talking to landowners in that the Gordon Circle area, and that they haven't been communicated yet as to, regarding the easements. And that's, I'm afraid that's our most challenging section of the Firefly Trail.
Is that the where it bows and comes behind those houses?
Yeah, correct. And then connects to well, ultimately there at the 5 Points intersection, and then the existing Winterville Firefly Trail.
And I know Derek's working with those guys because especially the two big landowners, Bemonsfer and Mr. I forgot the other guy, the one that we're impacting his building. I know they've done a lot of design work for those so that they could see it. And but I know they're working on the easements. One of the funny, well, not quite funny, but there at that conservation subdivision where Taylor Lane is, the county accidentally sold some of that right away as at a tax auction, and somebody thought that they were going to get a house lot for $4,000, and then we went back and looked at it, and I think they're going to have to sell their lot back to us at the cost that they paid, or whatever, because it was conservation easement that should have never been sold. So they're having to have some conversations with that person. But I'm curious why the way Derek's presented it, they've talked to a good percentage of all those property owners. So, but I'll ask him.
Yeah. I only concern is that, I mean, the most of the negative feedback that came around the trail was in the community in the Gordon Circle, which, I mean, is understandable. It gets kind of close to some of the homes there.
Yeah.
But just not,
I'll
don't
double
want to run
check.
into something.
I can report back next time and everything. I'll ask Derek, and
that'd be great. Thanks, Todd.
Okay.
As long as it's reportable. I know, like, sometimes we can't always share everything in negotiations and stuff, but just know that right now, yes, SPLOST is negotiating and coming up with how much landowners will be compensated, which money sometimes does the talking. So hopefully it'll get worked out and we can have a full trail. And I could go check out that barbecue place.
There you go.
Well, any other questions for Todd? Unfortunately,
all right.
I do not have a presentation.
Yeah, Todd, thanks for the presentation. That was great.
It's real nice.
It was better. I just figured Daniel
Yeah.
last time had to maneuver around to show everywhere, so I thought it might be easier if I just make some cut sheets of the different pieces and just update y'all with pictures. That makes it easier.
Yeah, I love that. Anytime you can do that, I'd love to see that.
Lauren,
so
didn't Keith yesterday say about like what Todd was saying about waiting till the fall for hopefully lower prices around the Cars Hill project? Or Cars Creek project?
I don't remember.
Okay. I think Todd, I believe if we're talking about the same thing, Keith was saying that yesterday about waiting for lower prices, hopefully.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that's what Derek said, because the to get concrete and stuff right now, we're talking a month to 2 months out that you're having to schedule just to get concrete. And I met with a sewer contractor today, and he was telling me that ductile iron pipe is 2 years out now. And it used to just be like 2 weeks to get the ductile iron for the sewer projects. And now they're 2 years out on ordering.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all. And Aaron, thanks for bringing that up. I think I lost connection when Keith was talking about that, so I appreciate you saying that. Okay, so real quick, Daniel, can you give us the Twitter update, the Twitter version of the update on what's going on with College Station before we start talking about our own projects? I did just want to have this mentioned during this meeting about what's going on with College Station, because that is an important bike route.
Steven, you want to do the Twitter update?
Yeah, as of 5:30 yesterday afternoon, College Station is back open for traffic.
All right.
Yes.
That's the update.
That's the update.
Okay, great.
Fully open.
Everything.
That was less than 144 words, or whatever that notation is. That's good.
Great. I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm out of town, so did not know that.
Yeah,
cool.
No worries.
All right. Next on the agenda are a couple of projects. And the main thing that we need to talk about is the Riverbend Road engineering plan and, what is needed from this commission. Daniel, you want to take it away?
Yeah. So the question is, as we go through all of our Athens in Motion projects and plans and various stages in development, there's conceptual plan, there's the preliminary engineering, there's construction plans, and really I think the question that I want to talk about and get Steven's buy-in on is what all is expected from Athens in Motion. So do we expect you guys to review all the construction plans and provide feedback? I mean, those are 50 to 100-page documents, or is there, and I don't know that you guys really know how to review construction plans. I barely know how to sometimes. And so I think conceptual plans make a lot of sense because in the case of Barber Street, like, hey, here are all these different options. We want to get your feedback and wait on which option you want. Once that's gone through Mayor and Commission and it's been approved for preliminary engineering, then really what it comes down to is, did our construction plans match up with what was recommended? So I'm kind of curious how much, and maybe this is a conversation y'all have had before, but do we need to review the Riverbend Road 85% plans, which I don't have in front of me. I can't even find them in my email because that's been going through engineering and we haven't gotten those, or I haven't gotten those. But we got Cherokee Road, we've got Riverbend Road, we've got Jefferson River Road, and Barber Street are the four main Athens in Motion projects right now. All of those are in preliminary engineering. And so as we move over the next several months, do y'all want to have eyes on them? Do you want to be able to provide feedback? Does that seem like it's getting too in the weeds? What do y'all think?
I think
that
oops.
Okay, sorry. I don't think we need to get into the weeds on construction plans unless there's a significant departure from what was shown to us conceptually. Now, the key phrase being the significant departure. That's my thought on that. So, but I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission. Do y'all want to see the construction plans? Do you want to vote on that? No one's excited about looking at construction plans. I think
Yeah, no, not
I
really.
think Derek's heart would be broken.
I don't understand. I mean, Stephen, what are your thoughts?
I think we we definitely need an official vote when there's alternative concepts. I think that vote needs to go in front of mayor and commission to show the recommendation from the user group. I also think that if you want to, just be emailed a view of those 85% preliminary plans when they're available, if you see anything alarming that needs to be brought in front of AIM and possibly turned into like an official letter or statement, I think that's worthwhile as well. Unless that happens, I don't think we need a second vote from the commission, for the preliminary plan agenda meeting. And I think goes back to what Lauren said. That would really, the only exception to that would be if those deviated from the initial concepts wildly, and you wanted to voice that.
In which case, like, I could, bring that back as like, hey, by the way, this is gone a different route, or if there's been some sort of change, obviously, which that would need to go through mayor and commission anyways. Like, if they've approved a concept, then we are obligated to do that concept. If something changes and we add something in, then we'll definitely want to bring it to you guys and give you guys updates. But yeah, I mean, other than just keeping you guys up to date on what phase we're at in a project, I think it makes sense that we would just do the updates to y'all, and not, because then we're getting into scheduling special called sessions where we're reviewing construction documents that it's just, Todd can tell you it's not a very fun thing to do. So
Yeah. So I guess if there's a change to location, length, facility itself, so going from like cycle track to multi-use path, I think that we would like to weigh in on that or look at that and talk about that as a commission. So location or length or facility.
yeah. Now, there are some other opportunities too where, for instance, Cherokee Road, we're sitting at 85% construction plans on that.
Right.
We're working on fleshing out the transition from Cherokee Road, where the project extent ends, into the intersection at Lexington Road. But in the meantime, we don't have construction funds allocated, and you guys are basically the user group for the bike and pedestrian funds, if I understand that correctly. So, if that is something that you want to bring back up, I'm not saying that we should bring Cherokee Road back up for construction. I'm just saying that is something where there's not really another group around, unless we're applying for grants or something where we can say, oh yeah, they're going to cover that cost. We also don't want plans just sitting around, but that's kind of the discussion to have is, how do we implement the network? Like, the tier system is really great and it guides our decision making and process there. But, how do we come up with, like, what is the next step so that we don't stall out while we're waiting for preliminary engineering to happen? Because in addition to that, there's also, like I mentioned earlier, all the tier 1 projects. There's also the short-term goals. We could, like, one of the recommendations could be, we would like to set aside this money for filling in bike lane gaps. We'd like to set aside this money for filling in sidewalk gaps.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then location, links, facilities, money.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments from commissioners about what we want to see and vote upon before we move on to our next item? Okay, so then I guess we don't need to have a special called session on Riverbend Road.
No.
Great.
As an update there, just on Riverbend Road, and this is from Ronnie. So basically, there's going to be a vote later in the fall, and well, not a vote, but what Ronnie was looking for is a recommendation to move to recommend mayor and commission approve preliminary plans and move into final design and right-of-way acquisition. So really, it's just this fall we'll probably be bringing the plans to mayor and commission, and then they will approve those plans and move them into final design and right-of-way. So that's where we're at on Riverbend.
Okay. All right, next item, coming back to the Oglethorpe-Hawthorne intersection and the connecting bike lanes, and I'm trying to figure out where we are with that. Where next steps? I think this came back to us, and we voted to have bike lanes through the intersection along Oglethorpe Avenue, and we also talked significantly a lot about where those bike lanes would connect, because on the Oglethorpe side, on the let's see, the Sunset side, the lanes actually end, I believe, at, what is that street? Way before Sunset.
It's, yeah, the next street up is a Holman. I feel like it begins
sounds
with H.
right.
It's Hawthorne, I think.
It's no. So it's definitely not going through Hawthorne, but there's Holman Avenue. Here I will pull up. Actually,
I see. Yeah, I see which one. I know which one you're talking about now. Sorry about
I have. I was like Googling it, and I do finally have the right window open. So, this is our bike network. For those who haven't seen it, something I'm working on. It's like you can highlight where all the bike lanes are, and when we zoom into Oglethorpe, the orange are Sharrows. So basically, from Holman Avenue to the intersection, all of this is just bikes in the same lane as cars. And I believe the recommendation from you guys was to essentially put in bike lanes to fill in this entire gap. So
yes, that was my understanding. That's what I thought we had voted on. So is that part of this project?
So, and we need to meet about this probably again to everyone get on the same page. I think the last time we spoke with the consultant, they discussed expanding the bike lane or adding bike lanes into the extent of the project scope, which that's where all the survey boundaries are. And I think it would only go maybe up to Clover. Like it would only be within the project boundaries of that intersection, which I'm not really in favor of. I would rather it be the entire gap. And so, yeah, we just need to kind of work that out as staff. Stephen, do you have thoughts on it, or do you want to just work on it?
I think we can promise an update by the next meeting, and probably something via email before then. But we need to work with Ronnie on that.
Okay, great. Yeah, just let me know what y'all need from us. I'd be curious to hear what the other commissioners have to say, but I think one of the most important things we do on the Athens in Motion Commission is we fill in gaps and we don't leave gaps. So if it takes another sub-project or some extra money, I think that we would be open to talking about that as a commission. What do you all think?
No, I would agree with you, Lauren, that, I mean, we can't have the gaps existing. So one of our goals is to have this complete plan of, people being able to get from spot A to spot B safely. So yeah, I'm with you there.
I think this goes back to probably a larger conversation in general about kind of capital planning and I know we don't have time right now to do it, but in the near future, we should probably have a group discussion about how you want the big funding buckets to be set up. Obviously we want to move forward with some of the tier 1 projects, but we probably need to identify an amount to be set aside for opportunities like this, right? Where there are gaps and current projects where we can really, for a lot less money than it would be to just start a whole new project by itself, to kind of jump on and be an add-on to some of these large construction projects. So to do that, we can certainly do it piecemeal, and that's what we've done in the past, but I think it makes a lot more sense to identify a piece of funding set aside specifically for that.
Stephen, that's a great idea. I'd love to talk about that.
Great.
Yeah, and I also wanted to specifically point out that I don't want you guys to feel like we're pressuring you to accept this like gift that we've given you of saying, well, we'll do to the extent of the project boundaries. Like, it is completely okay for the commission to say, no, actually, like, this is what we said, and you can write a letter to mayor and commission going against staff recommendations. So we want to work with you guys to implement and get your recommendation fulfilled, and if you don't feel like we're doing a good job of that, then we want y'all to hold us accountable. So I don't want y'all to feel pressured into accepting just the standard response.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. The other part of that was, and this is a wider discussion, this necessarily wasn't part of the intersection improvement, but mayor and commission did request that we do a study of Hawthorne Avenue and what a 3-laning concept would look like. And we did spend money with a consultant on developing some concepts of what Hawthorne would look like. Ultimately, the purpose of the study was to determine whether that would affect the intersection, because mayor and commission did not want to approve an intersection redo if it would have to be redone again when that 3-lane comes into play. And then the findings were that all of the various options that we ran through and developed concepts for would not impact that intersection in a way that couldn't be adjusted. So with that, we have preliminary concepts that could be a part of a project on that road. Stephen, because that came from mayor and commission as a request to just do that study, is that something where we haven't brought that to Athens Motion? I don't believe. Is that something where we need to bring that through?
Sure, to review the findings, absolutely.
Because I think it makes sense that since we spent money to have this done, that you guys would review it and then make a recommendation of how we could move forward with this idea.
Yes, I would love to have this group see those preliminary plans, those concepts for Hawthorne.
Awesome. So if y'all could send, Lauren, if you could send me an email or reminding me or requesting that. I know you're doing the request here, which is awesome. It helps me to have the extra email.
Yes.
We will plan
that
out for our next agenda, I believe. Which I might be hosting from, no. I was going to say I might be hosting that from Minnesota, but that's a week later, so we're still good. Okay. Anything else on those items?
That's good. In our last couple of minutes, so we talked about Prince Avenue at our special call meeting. we voted on the last segment of Barber Street concepts from Boulevard to Prince. And so next step is that goes before mayor and commission, and then it goes to public input, or what's next on that again?
So we need to get on the work session for the mayor and commission. Not going to be able to do it for this next one, but Stephen, was it the September-October cycle that we could shoot for?
So we would do a September work session followed by an October voting meeting.
Yeah, and so I need to prepare the public input for that.
Right, public input would open like the day after the work session, basically.
Yeah, because essentially we want to come back and say, all right, y'all directed us to do this. Here's what we developed. We've got public input ready to go. What's your move? And then we would plan to do public input basically the day after, the week after. If we do it the day after, then we could leave it open for 2 to 3 weeks and then have the results in time for the voting session so that they could take that into account as they make their decision.
Great. Thank you for that update on the timeline. And then the next item I want to make sure we get to is our next priority projects. And so my recommendation is that we send that to the Policy and Projects Committee to consider like what our next tier 1 projects could be, and come back to the rest of the commission with a recommendation. So TSLOS 2023 did pass. We do have a bucket of funds. And something that's also helpful is that our major corridors have their own funding sources. So Atlanta Highway, Lexington, those are both tier 1 projects on our list, but they already have a source of funding. And then Prince Avenue also has its own bucket, and Timothy/Mitchell Bridge. So these are for, I guess, non-corridor projects. And also keeping in mind Stephen's suggestion of if we want to set aside any amount of money for opportunities to take projects further, to not leave any gaps and things like that. So Randy, could you put this on Policy and Projects agenda?
Certainly will.
Thank you.
The other part of that is whether we should go ahead and rerun the scores before we go into the next round of projects. And so that would be kind of getting all the data together and rerunning the projects as they currently are, I guess.
Hey, Daniel, could you share the formula with us and the weighting of each of the factors for the current tiering? Because I've seen the results, but haven't seen how the sausage was made, and how the what different weights were given to what different elements of the formula.
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a tool that is written in Python script, and I could probably get a little more information about like how to decipher what that code.
And I can read code, but
okay.
Show off with your Python code. But it's just basically there must be some formula underlying it, right? Some relatively simple weighted formula that's used to prioritize. And I think we had some discussion earlier about the importance of the length of a project. That longer projects tended to get much higher priority over shorter projects, and that we wanted to think about that element of it. And in any case, I'm not saying we need to change the weights, but I'm curious what they are, and what are the implications of that, and is that what we still want to do?
Yeah, because I mean, in that case, our plan is to have the plan rewrite done by next summer, because that's the 2023 5-year deadline. And we would basically have to wait until that plan, because you've got the projects themselves and the numbers, and making sure that those are all fairly split up and identified, and then that runs through the prioritization tool, which needs to be updated with updated data. So making sure we have all the proper data, and that those, part of that too, one of the inputs are public input. So the 2017 data really showed a lot of input along millage and, Prince and,
Right.
those major corridors, which makes a lot of sense. And those are the ones that scored out. And so, we have our criteria as it's laid out, and the way that the way the sausage is made is something I would love to actually dig into as well. But
Daniel, what I'd probably recommend is for, in preparation for next summer, I think there's a future conversation about if the priority and the weights of those priorities that as they currently stand need to change. But what the conversation now can be as we rerun the actual scores is, obviously the priorities are also based on changing data, and data has changed since 2017. So does that data need to just be rerun so it's clean? Do we need to find a different data source for some of these things, and keeping the weights as they are now until the rewrite? But those are things we need to look at now versus the larger question about weighted priority changes for next summer.
I mean, even aside from changing the weights, though, for public input for that specific piece, like we can't just reuse the 2016 input. We'd need to redo
right.
a whole campaign to get that.
I think that's a piece to talk about now, whether there's anything we can point to now that's more relevant current data for that piece.
Yeah, and I don't know if, and I think we would need to do a comprehensive thing now.
Peter can.
Let me ask this. Okay, do we should policy and projects hold off looking at our tier 1 so we have a chance to rerun the data through that? Like when Daniel, I know your plate is really full, so when can you get to something like that realistically?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
I can mess around with the tool, and do a couple projects here and there. Realistically, running the entire network is also something that is, it takes a lot of CPU strength, I
Right.
think, like processing strength. Like I ran, I think 2 or 3 projects through the tool, and it took, it went overnight. To rerun 100, like it could be a few days or a week. Even then, it's also kind of, there's going to have to be some test runs to make sure that the way that the data is currently formatted is fitting within that tool. So,
okay. So maybe just for now, like the Policy
Yeah.
and Projects Committee will talk about this as something that's coming up, and then the committee members could take a look at what we have listed for tier 1, but maybe they don't come forth with an official recommendation until later.
yeah, and I'll get an answer back to you guys on how long that will take, because it really, there's a lot of dependencies in there, and I think scope and other workload and stuff like that factors in. So,
Of course.
even you and I, we can talk about that internally and get that.
Okay,
Now,
great.
because in the meantime, though, I guess then my follow-up question is: those projects and policies, do y'all want to explore some of the buckets of funds that y'all are talking about and how that can break down? Because it doesn't necessarily address individual tiers you know, maybe that can be more where the discussion goes with y'all's committee.
I think that would be good to understand and have everyone on the committee have that the same view on those buckets. Yeah,
So we
that's a good
can,
place to start.
and we can invite the SPLOST office and we can read through the project statements for the actual funding. So you can, and that'll kind of tell you what the funding can be used for. For instance, 2023 funds talk explicitly about Athens in Motion, but they also talk about ADA improvements and things like that. So I think that would be helpful as well to just kind of learn what we can use the funds for.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because the 2018 funds are kind of separate. I mean, and something else to highlight is there was a commission defined option for the Atlanta Highway corridor. There's 4 million that was allocated on that corridor, and I believe 1 million or 1.5. I think it was 1 million was allocated to do the Timothy Road and Mitchell Bridge stuff, and I think the rest of it has to be on the actual corridor itself. And my interpretation of the CDO was that a plan like Athens in Motion could be used to identify the next priorities. So maybe that is something that the projects committee could look at. You know, where within the Athens in Motion plan could we use, like, are there any things within that corridor as defined in that bucket of money that would be good to highlight as a recommendation from Athens in Motion, and then I could bring that forward as well.
Yeah, at this point, I see that the 2018 TSPLOS funding and buckets, that they won't necessarily interface with the 2020-23 corridor funds.
Right,
they will
but
have
even just,
to.
Yeah, with the way that they will have to.
Yeah, particularly
okay.
for that Atlanta Highway bucket, which is very tiny, especially the way it's been divided up now to include Atlanta Highway and Timothy and Mitchell Bridge. So we're not going to be able to build anything with just that bucket of funds. That 4 million, that less than 4 million for Atlanta Highway for TSPLOS 2018. That's all going to be starter stuff. But
Well,
this is getting a little bit in the weeds.
You know, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's true.
I'm just and my intention there was just that maybe projects and policy, we could discuss that in terms of, it's not necessarily saying, all right, here's our next tier 1 projects we want to go after, but I think it would be good for us to discuss how the money gets used, what percentage breakdown, you know, and then yes, Stephen, like you mentioned, maybe we could get someone from SPLOST to come talk to our next meeting, and they could talk to us about how those funds can be used between the 2018 versus the 2023.
Yeah, and I'm happy to be there as well.
Great. Okay, so we're running out of time. So really quickly, Daniel, can you give us the quick update on the bicycle-friendly community application, Vision Zero resolution, and the coordinator position? Can you give us the Twitter version?
I won't bother with the bike-friendly community update. I'm working on that, and I'm going to be like, I'm basically just trying to look through the application, figure out which departments I need to talk to, and then start gathering that information. Vision Zero resolution was placed on the consent agenda. Everyone was really favorable of it. They did ask if this came from staff or another body, and of course, at that moment, my internet cut out and I wasn't able to respond to let them know that I did have a substantial amount of help from y'all. But if you watch the meeting, you know, the answer is yes, it came from staff. But as always, there's a lot more to a yes than just that. So I really appreciate those that helped me get that put together. Position update, the application closes in like next Sunday, I guess 31st. So we will see the applications at that time, and we will go through them, and it'll be fantastic. We'll see.
Great. Very excited to have that Vision Zero resolution come up for a vote. It's wonderful. Okay, on to our committee report back very quickly. We've already talked about Prince Avenue quite a bit, and Teresa's not here to give us an update on Atlanta Highway. Do we have any updates for Lexington Road?
No, not really. It's just things are moving along, the engineering aspects, but nothing earth shattering.
Great. Yeah, so we're going to get sidewalks on the south side of Lexington. That's 2018 T-SPLOST funding.
Yeah, and the update from Atlanta Highway is just that there will be some, I believe there's going to be some public input pretty soon with there's some options for specifically for the Maltese path along Timothy and Mitchell Bridge. So those concepts have been developed and going to bring it to the public for the alternate options.
All right, moving on to our own committees, grants and data. I think some of this carried over from last month. Any highlights?
Let's see, did Mark had to hop off, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, highlights are that I am working on grants. We just submitted one last night for a planning grant. I wrapped as much bike ped stuff into it as I could. Another one is coming up in a month. It'll include the bridge over the loop on Mitchell Bridge Road. We're going to be asking you guys to write a letter of support. So I guess maybe this is that request. Please write a letter of support for us, because the deadline is, I believe, beginning of September.
Okay. So are you going to send out an email reminding us that you need a letter?
Yeah, I'll send out a request.
Okay.
From there,
Awesome.
working on the AIM data set and the prioritization criteria. Those are things that we're discussing in the data side of things too.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you for your hard work on those grants. Daniel, I know you were up late last night working on that one for bridges.
Thanks.
Okay, policy and projects. Randy, do you want to summarize what that committee's working on?
Yeah, so currently the two big activities are looking at the ordinance revisions. Daniel's been doing a bunch of work there too. I don't know when you sleep, to tell you the truth, but so we're looking at just the quick highlights there. Number one is getting an ordinance out there to prohibit people from parking and stopping in bike lanes, putting their cars, looking at the bikes as vulnerable road users, make sure that the bike routes are maintained during construction. You can see the other items that are being considered. The other one is looking at the crosswalk policy that the county has in place currently, and one that's, what would you consider, Daniel, a draft, or one that was written but never really approved or gone through that process?
It's our, it's the policy that some of our folks follow if it pertains to them. So in some cases, certain offices or divisions will follow one part of it, and then whenever RRFBs are discussed, that's not covered in the, signals aren't covered in the original. So those are covered in the updated one, even though it hasn't gone through mayor and commission approval. So it is it's our guidelines currently.
All right. So, and the action out of that for the committee is that we're looking at other cities' policies and seeing what, if there's any good items that can be borrowed or stolen and incorporated.
Yeah. And
Thank you,
specifically,
Randy.
we won't be getting into like the technical revisions of like this many feet from an intersection is acceptable, but what we could do is say, hey, here are 5 communities that say 200 or 300 feet is okay, you know, like those types of recommendations, and then even just saying like, hey, I think, you know, you guys should have a some criteria set out for um, pedestrian hybrid beacons because we don't currently have that covered in our policy. Or I think one of the other things we talked about was a type of crosswalk. Now I can't remember which one, but
Yeah.
oh, or in around schools or something like that.
Something to that effect.
Can't remember.
Okay, thank y'all for working on that. Education and communications, we spent some time talking about events already and then our web presence. So then this last section, I know we're right at 6:15. Lane has left, so we don't have an update on UGA. And then Dale, in the future, if this would be your time where you might give us an update on what's going on with the Greenway Commission, anything you want to say. But we don't need to put you on the spot today unless there's something you'd like for us to know.
We didn't meet this past month because we couldn't have a quorum, so we didn't have a meeting. But nothing to update right now, but I will have reports in the future.
Thank you very much. Yes. And we, on the Athens in Motion Commission, we managed to make quorum. I was a little worried, but we managed to do it. I'm barely hanging on here at my service, but well, thank you for that. We'll look forward to that. And I think Aaron had to hop off, but he's on TSPLOS 2018 with me, and we just heard about the Prince Avenue pilot project. So you all are in the loop on that, and then received an update on all TSPLOS projects, and some of that is covered by Todd's update on things like the Greenway and Firefly Trail. And then I haven't heard anything about TSPLOS 2023 yet, other than I meant to ask Keith about collections, when that would start, because we're going to be at $109 million for TSPLOS 2018 soon. But,
Steven, do you want to update that one?
Questions for 2023 or for 2018?
Yeah, for 2023, do you know of any updates on it?
Only that, no, nothing concrete.
Okay.
okay. All right. Any other item we need to discuss or mention? Okay, well, thank you all for attending. I do believe that I need to receive a motion to adjourn our meetings according to our rules. And now, how does this work, Daniel, if I don't have a quorum to adjourn? Or
we have to hang out here until next month.
Until enough people show up.
So what are y'all's plans tonight? Yeah, I think it's safe to say we can just adjourn. If someone wants to come after us, then we don't have that much money. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Even though we don't have a quorum, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. But before we do, I want to thank Daniel for leading the meeting since my connection has been so spotty. And appreciate y'all's patience with that. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Got a first. Can I get a second?
Second from Craig. He waved his hand.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. All right. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Have a great night.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.